Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I wanted to go over a new update from the Center for Politics Sabato's Crystal Ball, where they've given some updated rankings for the 2025 and 2026 gubernatorial races. I thought this was very interesting and I want to go over it for you in today's video. So the points on the article says, as the post-Labor Day sprint begins to the November gubernatorial races, we began upgrading Democrats in Virginia and moving that race to likely Democratic. New Jersey remains in the lean Democratic category. For the 2026 races, the open seats in Iowa and Maine get more competitive in our rankings, and it also says Republicans should be able to easily win a new seat in Missouri as a result of a new proposed gerrymander, the latest development in the fast-moving redistricting wars. So the current Crystal Ball 2025 gubernatorial race ratings show as followed on the governor's side of things. It shows Virginia now as a likely Democratic gain here. It shows Iowa into the lean Republican side. And I want to say what was the other one? It was Maine goes from likely to now lean Democratic. So let's listen to their reasoning. In just over 2 weeks, in-person early voting will begin in the Virginia gubernatorial race. And even as this open seat gubernatorial race enters its closing stretch, our basic assessment is not much different from when we first outlined the contest back in April. We designated former Rep. Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, as a favorite over the Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears. To be sure, over the last month or so, some Republicans have maintained that the events of the campaign are moving in their direction. Most concretely, it was hard to miss an image of a woman protesting Earl Sears' presence at an Arlington School Board meeting. The protester who took issue with the Lieutenant Governor's stance on transgender issues held a sign that was racially insensitive. Though Spanberger distanced herself from the protester and condemned the message, the image was circulated widely on conservative social media. The Earl Sears campaign announced that the days immediately following the sign incident were her best fundraising days as a candidate in the race. That response may have encouraged Earl Sears, who has long been known for her conservative stances on social issues, is to lean more heavily on her opposition to transgender rights. Her most recent ad is essentially a reprise of what became known as Donald Trump's Kamala is for they, them ad, although the ad from the presidential race seems more effective because Harris, through her own words, gave Republicans more to work on this issue than Spanberger has, and says they have linked ads that explains that. Earl Sears is also deploying outgoing Governor Glenn Youngkin in ads. Youngkin remains relatively popular and is a very strong, useful surrogate for Earl Sears. Was this all to move the needle for Earl Sears? Joe Szymanski, a Republican who takes a clear-eyed approach when analyzing elections, may have summed things up best in a Substack post. Essentially, while the Arlington sign incident on its own may not be enough to change the trajectory of the race, it may help Earl Sears better consolidate Republicans. Since at least the June primary, there have been persistent reports of a GOP ticket that is less than unified. With Earl Sears now raising the salience of red meat social issues, and with the foil in a woke protester, Republicans may have reason to rally around their ticket. The narrative of a GOP resurgence in the race has also been fed by a poll from Roanoke College. In mid-August, it gave its poll Spanberger 46 to 39% lead over Sears, which was down from the 43-26% margin that Spanberger had in the middle of May. Now, of course, a 10-point swing from the same pollster in the race is notable, but we always thought that a 26% baseline was too low for any major party statewide candidate in Virginia, and I 100% agree with that statement. In other words, we saw Roanoke College poll less as momentum for Republicans and more as the difference between a poll that was too good for Democrats and one that was more in line with what the race should have been all along. Now, perhaps Spanberger's lead has held up as most other surveys have come from Republican-line firms. One of the latest examples from Coefficient, which showed Spanberger with a 48 to 43% lead, even as the poll's electorate looked more like 2021's than 2024's. Roanoke also used the 2021 exit poll when Republicans swept 3 statewide races to weight its poll. Both polls arguably stress-tested Spanberger's lead by suggesting an electorate that may be redder than what we will see in November, and she was still ahead. To be clear, we also don't necessarily think Spanberger is actually leading by considerably more than what these polls show. Mid to high single digits may very well be where the race is at. In her own words, Spanberger has been working to nationalize the race by linking Earl Sears to the Trump administration. One Spanberger ad that has been running for about a month depicts Earl Sears as unsympathetic to thousands of federal workers that have lost their jobs under Trump. More recently, Democrats in key races across the country have hit Republicans on their support of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. Spanberger's latest ad ties Earl Sears to that. Going down the home stretch of the campaign, Spanberger is also set to dominate the conversation on the airwaves. One enduring theme of the race has been Spanberger's financial advantage over Earl Sears. through the major disclosure milestones this year. She has enjoyed roughly a 2-to-1 fundraising advantage. That is very significant in a governor's race like this one, especially where neither candidate was super well known by the Commonwealth of Virginia. Spanberger having that big of an advantage is very big. Spanberger also has the large advantage in future ad reservations, according to the AD Impact Politics as of last week. Spanberger's lopsided financial advantage and the fact the Trump administration seemed to go out of its way to ensure the state continues its long-standing trend of reacting against the presidential party have had us feeling that the Democrats should be stronger favorites to flip the governorship. We'll be paying attention to whatever tea leaves that may show up in the early voting patterns, but for now we are upgrading Spanberger's position. Virginia moves from lean Democrat to likely Democrat. It also gives a quick mention that in New Jersey, we're sticking with our lead Democratic rating. Post-primary polling is consistently shown Mikey Sherrill leading former state assemblyman and 2021 nominee Jack Ciattarelli, similar to Virginia. It says, electorally, one of Sherrill's priorities seems to be shoring up any weaknesses with minority voters. The results from June's primary, where she emerged from a crowded contest with a 34% plurality, and some of the 2024 presidential results in the state offer some context as to why Democrats shouldn't take minority voters in the state for granted. Yesterday, Sherrill campaigned with Newark Mayor Ross Baraka, one of her primary rivals, who polled well in some of the state's most diverse communities. One reason we've come to view New Jersey as the more competitive race is that Jack Ciattarelli can run as the, quote, change candidate. This was the theme of a first post-Labor Day, and Republicans have responded to Sherrill's efforts to nationalize the race by laying much of the blame for the state's problems at the feet of outgoing Democratic Governor Phil Murphy. In the Democratic legislature, which such trends are meant to be broken, it also might be worth pointing out that neither party has strung together at least 3 gubernatorial wins in a row in a state since 1960s. So it's very interesting here. With all that said, though, they said our bottom line for 2025 is that the gubernatorial races is that a Republican will win in either New Jersey or Virginia in November would be considered an upset. And honestly, going on my own personal rankings, I do not have anything to really disagree with there. That's the 2026 map. The 2025 map, I currently have both Virginia and New Jersey listed as likely Democrat. I'm not totally sure what their point ranking is, but for mine, likely is anything 5 points or more, or 5 to 15 points, excuse me. And I have Virginia currently being around a 9 to 10 point win for the Democrats. New Jersey, I have right around that 6-point margin. That's currently where I have things right now. So they're both likely Democrat for my own rankings, but for a lot of the same reasons, I'm in pretty much complete agreement with them on that. As for 2026, to go more in depth about some of the races, the first one in Maine, where Governor Janet Mills is term limited out and have a crowded primary on the Democratic side to replace Mills with lots of candidates running. There's also a legacy name possibility in the GOP side, with Jonathan Bush among several Republicans already running or looking at the race. He is the nephew of former President George H.W. Bush. The Bush family has a famous summer home in Kennebunkport. Maine, a small state with quirky politics, sometimes has significant independent candidacies, and this election appears to at least have one in State Senator Rick Bennett. The former State Senate President and State Republican Party Chair is running toward the middle as an independent, and it's not really clear which major party his presence would hurt more. The lack of clarity about the major party nominees and the potential for this to be more than a 2-person race, all unfolding as Democrats try to win 3 straight terms, leads us to think this one could be a sleeper even if Democrats retain an edge. And I did do a video not too long ago where I talked about Maine potentially being a sleeper in the 2026 gubernatorial elections for a lot of similar reasons. I did not mention the third party aspect, though. That is very interesting. I did mention the Bush family part. So that is interesting. Now, for Iowa, it does mention the prospect of an open seat race by State Auditor Rob Sand and Representative Republican Randy Feenstra. Both face primary opposition, but are currently favored to be in the general elections. Republicans are taking Sand's candidacy seriously, although they are hopeful they can pin National Democratic label on him over the course of the campaign. Democrats have been performing excellently in special state legislative elections in Iowa this year, and as they noted last week, these kinds of elections have smaller and are very likely more Democratic-leaning electorates than Iowa will have next year. That said, there may also be some actual dissatisfaction with Republicans in the state. Reynolds herself only has mediocre numbers at best, which may have contributed to her retiring decision. We do now think this race belongs in a more competitive category, and they're moving it from likely to lean Republican. Like Democrats in Maine, though, Republicans are still favored. We are, however, keeping the now open Senate race as likely Republican. That race seems to be more of a lockstep Republican win on that one. And then it does talk about Arizona and Kansas as well, and Nevada and Alaska if you want to look up more about that. I don't want to go on too long here. It's already been going on for a long time here, but that's the latest on that. So I found that really interesting. Make sure to go check it out on the centerforpolitics.org website if you want to know more about it. They have Nevada, Iowa, and Georgia narrowly staying red. Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan being the toss-ups. Kansas narrowly favored to flip red as well as lean Republican. And then you also have more competitive races now in New Jersey and Maine, more of a blue Democratic win in Virginia. So I thought this was very interesting. Make sure to leave your thoughts down below, what you think of this map from Sabato's crystal ball, and what you think this could all mean for 2025 and 2026's governor races. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you did, leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Also, make sure to hit like and subscribe as I post multiple videos every day that you are not going to want to miss out on. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.